How do the 2023 comic book movies rank? What's happening, guys? Back at you with another video. So, just like every other year, we have had quite a few comic book movies released this year for the year of 2023. There was quite a few good ones, some that were not so good. There's actually some couple movies that I just barely found out that were actually comic book movies. But the question is, how do they rank amongst each other? So in this video, we're going to be ranking all the comic book movie releases this year for 2023. We're going to go from the bottom to the top. Coming at the bottom for me is going to be Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Now, this is a movie I actually didn't get to check out in theaters, but I did watch it over the summer once it hit streaming. And I gotta say, to me, this is definitely a step down from the first Shazam movie. The first Shazam movie was a lot of fun to watch. It was definitely a solid movie. But this one, I just found to be sort of forgettable in a way. Like, honestly, I watched it over the summer just the one time, and I really cannot tell you key details from this movie. Like, I literally forgot some stuff. I mean, I know, of course, there was like one scene where Shazam fights a dragon. I know there was the villains of who were the Atlas sisters, I think, Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. And I know we had the Shazam family come out in this movie, and oh yeah, there was a Wonder Woman cameo. But other than that, honestly, I couldn't really tell you anything else that happened in this movie. I didn't really have as much fun with this one as I did with the first Shazam movie. I think Zachary Levi still plays Shazam pretty well still in this movie, but other than that, it's really forgettable and just don't like it as much. And talking about step downs from their first movie, we got Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Honestly, after watching this movie, I felt not necessarily a big disappointment, but still maybe a smidge disappointed nonetheless. I honestly was kind of excited for this movie. I didn't go in it having like high expectations or anything like that, but I was kind of wanting just basically your fun type of movie along the lines of the first one. You know, just having a movie that's at least somewhat good as the first one, if not better. And I just found this one after watching it in theaters. I just found this one to just be meh. Really, the only things that I kind of liked about this movie was the whole adventure we're going on with Orm and Aquaman himself, and the banter they have with the brotherly rivalry. And you know, it was fun just seeing them together and just banter, go back and forth, and having them go on this adventure, and just the way brothers would act if they had a rivalry between them. Honestly, that was probably the only fun part about this movie. I was really hyped for the villain of Black Manta to where he was going to be like the main villain of this movie. But I mean, he kind of was the main villain, but some decisions they made I didn't really like. I really wanted him to just be this villain that goes up against Aquaman and just be this powerful villain. And they didn't really do that too much, not at least not to the extent I want them to. And this movie sort of had a convoluted plot also. If they kept it a little bit more simpler, it could have been maybe a little bit better. But like I said, I think this one is definitely a step down from the first Aquaman movie, which I had a lot of fun watching. So, I mean, that's the reason why it comes down at the bottom like this. Next up, we have The Marvels. And The Marvels is actually a movie that I actually kind of had fun with. This is a movie that I went into not having really high expectations for this movie. Just wanted to at least, I want this movie to do something. And it at least did something for me to where I at least had some fun with this movie. Iman Vellani is definitely the highlight of the movie as she plays Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. But I think they actually were able to do something actually kind of good with the three leads in this movie, where they're able to actually try to come together as this team. You see them kind of struggling to come together, and then you actually see them come together and actually bond and form this friendship and become this team. You're able to get Captain Marvel more fleshed out with her personality. Her personality is definitely way better in this movie than it was in the first Captain Marvel movie. Yeah, Monica Rambeau trying to team up with the rest of them, and definitely was hype when it came to that post-credit scene and the ending of this movie. Definitely were two things that made you hype for the future. But yeah, like I had a lot of fun with this movie. Sure, it's not great, but it's what I can ask for at least. Next up, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I gotta say with this movie, although it was not a big disappointment, but it left me wanting a little bit more from this movie. Although even though that, and it, I don't hate on this one as much as other people do, because I know a lot of people hate this movie and were super disappointed with this movie. Now, like I said, I am slightly disappointed, not a super lot, but it just left me wanting more from this movie. I really did enjoy Jonathan Majors as Kang in this movie, but the way he just gets defeated and not really showing us why he's this big bad or going to be the big bad of this whole phase, just like the way Thanos was of the last phase. And the way he just gets defeated by Ant-Man and ants definitely did not leave a good taste. Although this is a watchable movie, it still left me kind of wanting a little bit more from this movie. Now we come to a movie that I just barely found out the other day, right before I was going to do this video, that it turns out it was based on a comic book, and that is The Killer on Netflix. This movie is directed by David Fincher and stars Michael Fassbender. And I gotta say, while watching this movie, or at least beginning to watch this movie, I was kind of digging the whole aesthetic and vibe of this movie. It was slow paced. You had Michael Fassbender in these different scenes, and he was like narrating, doing like a voiceover of sorts, and it was like slow paced. I was kind of actually getting into it the way it was like setting up stuff and going into the movie. But a slow paced, and it can only get you so far. There's like basically a slow pace throughout the whole movie. And although I was enjoying it and actually liking the slow pace through most of the movie, by the time it gets into the second half and it's still keeping that slow pace going on, it just ran out for me. Like that slow methodical pace was kind of running out for me during the second half. There's only one action scene in here, and it is a pretty good action scene. But honestly, I think if this movie had a little bit more action along with the slow pace, it would have probably worked a little bit better for me. I was digging it in the first half, and with the slow pace and the way it was setting stuff up and the way it was playing out, and the whole vibe and aesthetic of it was working for me in the first half. But by the time the second half comes in, the slow pace runs out for me. It doesn't have the same effect, and that's why I gotta put this movie at this spot. We have The Flash, released over the summer. And honestly, I was excited about this movie, especially after the trailer that we got that was showing this movie and how it was going to be. I was really excited after that trailer. I was really kind of hyped for this movie. And then a lot of people who are doing early screenings, or people who saw the movie really early, were like saying, "Oh, it's the best comic book movie ever. Oh, this is such a great movie," and all that. So I was really hyped and looking forward to checking out this movie and seeing what it was going to do. And honestly, I did for the most part enjoy this movie. I do like this movie somewhat, but just like it to a small degree. Now, I've only seen the movie twice so far, and honestly, the more that I think about it, it's like I just feel like I don't really want to go back to watching it, at least not anytime soon. Like, I don't think this is a bad movie. I know a lot of people are hating on this movie right now. I don't think it's a bad movie or anything like that. But it's just not like a top movie of this year, or at least one of my favorites of this year. Like, after watching it in theaters, when it was all said and done, after watching it, I was like, okay, it's not bad, it's all right. But I don't know, I just felt like a little underwhelmed with it at the end of it, and it felt like it was missing something. And after watching it for a second time, once it hit streaming, I still felt the same way about this movie. Michael Keaton is definitely a highlight of the movie. Seeing him return as Batman again. Supergirl was awesome, also in the movie for the short time we were able to get her. And Ezra Miller as the Flash in this movie is serviceable. But yeah, I just felt like it just felt like I wanted a little bit more from this movie, and I just felt like after watching this movie, I was slightly underwhelmed with it. I don't think it's a bad movie as people are saying, but it's definitely not a super great movie either. It's all right. It's all right. But, the more that I think about it, as I was saying, the more and more I don't really want to see this movie again, at least not anytime soon. A movie that I was actually kind of surprised with is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now, I'm a fan of those 90s Turtles movies. So with this one coming out, I was kind of skeptical on if it was going to be any good or how they were going to do it. And I gotta say, I was fairly surprised somewhat with this movie. I actually enjoyed this movie. I think it does a lot of good things right, especially when it comes to the Ninja Turtles themselves, where we get more teenager-like Ninja Turtles as compared to some of the other movies. I think having teenagers actually voice the characters actually work for it. The many different references to pop culture in this movie was kind of cool to see, and the soundtrack was actually done pretty good. The songs they were able to use throughout the movie were classic songs and great pop hits here and there, and it was actually done pretty well. So overall, I actually was enjoying this movie, and I'm honestly interested in seeing what they do next, especially with that end credit teaser. Blue Beetle is actually one of my favorite movies of the year. Now, I've been a Blue Beetle fan for going on 10 years now, so whenever they announced that there was going to be a live action version of the Blue Beetle character, I was super hyped, super excited for this. And I gotta say, after watching this movie, it did not let me down. I enjoy this movie so much. I really like it. It's one of my favorites of the year. And I remember when they announced Xolo Maridueña was going to be playing the character of Jaime Reyes, and I was on board with that cast, and I was like, I agree, let's get him in there. And the way he's able to play this character just reminds me so much of what we read in the comics and seen in a couple of the shows. And the suit in this movie, honestly, is so, it looks so good, the way they were able to have this practical suit, but also use a little CGI with it, and it just blends so well. Yeah, a lot of people are saying this movie is definitely generic, and it does a lot of superhero tropes, but I can't lie, I still enjoy this movie, even though it might seem generic and it does some of the tropes. It does it well, honestly. So I'm excited for when we get the future of the DCU and Blue Beetle's going to be in there. I'm excited to see what his future holds for his character, and I can't wait to see him again. We had the release of Extraction 2, the sequel to the first Extraction movie, starring Chris Hemsworth. And I honestly found out this was based on a graphic novel. I believe it was a graphic novel. I actually found out about it about a couple weeks ago. I watched the movie for the first time, and it was saying in the credits how it was based on a graphic novel. So decided to go ahead and include it in here. And I gotta say, really the movie, things that drive this movie more to the top for me is going to be that it has such great and amazing action in here. There's a lot of great action scenes in here. There's even a 20-minute one-shot action scene in here that was honestly pretty amazing. So really the action, if you're looking for a good action movie with some good action scenes, this is a movie definitely to check out. Had some awesome action scenes going on in here. So definitely the action is what drives this one. Now when it comes to the top 2 spots, it was definitely a difficult choice for me because these are 2 of my favorite movies that came out this year. It was definitely a difficult choice on which one I would put at the number 2 spot, which one would I put at the number 1 spot. But I decided that the movie that would be at the number 1 spot would be the one movie that I rewatched the most this past year. So coming at the number 2 spot is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And this was such an amazing finale to the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy and to these characters. I love this movie so much. I loved it so much. I remember watching it twice in theaters. I watched it that one day, and then the next day I went back and watched it again. I watched it again once it hit streaming, and I just watched it again like last week. This movie I enjoy and love so much. Definitely can be a hard watch when it comes to some specific scenes in the movie, and it's definitely gut-wrenching, and it's definitely could break you and hit you in the feels. Like even watching it last week, I still felt those scenes hit me hard. That one action scene that we get towards the end of the movie with No Sleep Till Brooklyn blasting, and that one shot scene, the way the camera just pans around and sees everybody in action, that was an epic scene. That was epic. But the way that James Gunn was just able to do this movie and be able to close out this trilogy and close out, have this finale for these characters, and the way that he did it, he did a great job of just closing his character's story out and really not just having anybody just go away or anything like that, but just having a good finale with these characters. Like when it was all said and done, I really felt like I was going to miss these characters a lot. And just overall, the way that he was able to turn these characters into household names when nobody really knew who they were. So yeah, this one is definitely a comic book movie that I loved this year. I enjoy this movie so much. But coming in at the number 1 spot for me is going to be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Like I was saying before, this is the movie that I rewatched the most this year. I probably watched it 5 or 6 times already this year. It's a movie that I love so much. The way we were able to get this story and with Miles Morales, and also too the way they're able to sort of put Spider-Gwen in the forefront, also to make her own story within this movie. Also, this movie does a good job of the whole multiverse aspect, and the soundtrack. Man, I had that soundtrack on repeat a couple of times throughout the year. Amazing soundtrack, just like the first movie, but also the score. The score was pretty good in this movie also. And it was also amazing being able to see the different animation styles that we were able to get during this movie, like each universe having its own sort of animation style, and just the way they're able to visualize that on screen was pretty awesome. But honestly, the rewatchability on this movie is high for me. I could just throw this movie on and still be engaged in watching this movie after watching it so many times. I enjoyed this movie so much, and it is one of my favorites of this year. But that is how I would rank the 2023 comic book releases this year. Let me know down in the comments below, how would you rank these movies? I have a few other 2023 movie videos coming out later in the coming days, like most surprising, most disappointing movies, and what are the top 10 movies, in my opinion, of 2023. So be sure to check those out. But that's going to do it for this video. Hope you all have an awesome day, and I will see y'all in the next one.